Volume 2. Tape number 2, Side A. Lesson 11. Introducing the West Family.
Today I'm going to introduce you to some new people, the West family. Roger and Alice West, and their children, Diane and Timmy, and Roger's brother, Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred is a businessman and lives in Chicago. But Roger, Alice, Diane, and Timmy live in Jersey City. It's a big city, very close to New York. Roger West is 43 years old. He is a bank manager, and he is a very busy and hard-working man. He often has to do overtime. But he always spends Saturday and Sunday with his family. His wife Alice is 39. She is a very beautiful woman, and her friends say she looks more like 29 than 39. Alice is a very good cook and an interesting conversationalist. So Roger always invites his business associates to his home instead of to a restaurant. Diane is 17. She's in her last year of high school. She is a very intelligent young lady, and she wants to go to medical school and become a doctor. Diane's main interest is horseback riding, and she belongs to a riding club. Little Timmy is only 7. He's a very active little boy and enjoys all kinds of games. He likes to draw pictures, too. Recently, Roger bought him a bicycle for his birthday, so he is very happy. Now, answer these questions. How many children do the Wests have?
They have 2 children.
What are their names?
Their names are Diane and Timmy.
What's Roger's brother's name?
His name is Fred.
Does Fred live with his brother?
No, he doesn't.
Where does he live?
He lives in Chicago.
Where do Roger, Alice, and the children live?
They live in Jersey City.
How old is Roger West?
He's 43.
What does he do?
He's a bank manager.
Is he a hard-working man?
Yes, he is.
Is Alice a good cook?
Yes, she is.
Is she a good conversationalist or a poor one?
She's a good conversationalist.
Where does Roger always invite his business associates?
He always invites them to his home.
How old is Diane?
She's 17.
Is she in high school or in college?
She's in high school.
What does she want to become?
She wants to become a doctor.
What's her brother's name?
His name is Timmy.
He's a very active little boy, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
What does he enjoy?
He enjoys all kinds of games.
Now, ask the Wests these questions. Use their names. Ask Roger where he lives.
Where do you live, Roger?
Ask Roger how he spends his weekends.
How do you spend your weekends, Roger?
Ask Alice if she's a good cook.
Are you a good cook, Alice?
Ask Uncle Fred where he lives.
Where do you live, Uncle Fred?
Ask Diane what she wants to become.
What do you want to become, Diane?
Ask Timmy what he got for his birthday.
What did you get for your birthday, Timmy?
End of Lesson 11. Lesson 12. Shopping at the supermarket.
It is Saturday. Roger West and his wife Alice are shopping at a supermarket. Let's listen to them talking.
Let's hurry, Alice. It's after 1 o'clock and I'm starving.
Me too. Let's see. What do we need?
Bread, milk, cheese. What else? Oh yes, we need some peanut butter too.
We've got plenty of peanut butter at home.
Are you sure?
Quite sure. I bought some the day before yesterday.
Okay. Well, here's the bakery section. How much bread do we need?
2 loaves will be enough, I think.
All right. Here you are. Say, those cakes look good. Shall we get a few?
All right. Just half a dozen, though. Now let's go to the dairy section.
Here we are. How much milk?
3 cartons. Now what about cheese? You like this Danish blue, don't you?
Yes, let's get half a kilo.
Half a kilo? That's a lot. 250 grams will be enough.
Okay. Have we got enough eggs, do you think?
I think we do. But let's get some more anyway.
Good. Now we're finished. Let's go.
Not yet. We need some cereal, too.
The cereal's over there. Here's a box of cornflakes.
Fine. Now we only have to get some meat.
That's right. I completely forgot about the meat.
We can get some chicken and a little beef.
There isn't any chicken,
No chicken? What sort of store is this anyway?
and there's hardly any beef either. There's plenty of pork, though.
Then we'll have to make do with some pork chops, I suppose.
Now, answer these questions. What are Roger and Alice doing?
They're shopping.
Where are they?
In a supermarket.
Where does Roger get the bread?
He gets it at the bakery section.
Does Roger get cakes at the bakery section too?
Yes, he does.
Where do they get the milk?
They get it at the dairy section.
What else do they get in that section?
They get some cheese.
What kind of cheese does Roger like?
He likes Danish blue cheese.
How much cheese does Roger want to buy?
He wants to buy half a kilo.
How much cheese does Alice think will be enough?
She thinks 250 grams will be enough.
What kind of cereal do they buy?
They buy some cornflakes.
Do they buy 1 box or 2?
They buy 1 box.
What did Roger forget about?
He forgot about the meat.
Why don't they get any chicken?
Because there isn't any.
Why don't they get a little beef?
Because there's hardly any beef.
What will they have to make do with?
They'll have to make do with some pork chops.
Now, imagine you are Roger and ask Alice these questions. Ask Alice what else you need.
What else do we need?
Ask her if she's sure there's some peanut butter at home.
Are you sure there's some peanut butter at home?
Ask her how much bread you need.
How much bread do we need?
Ask her if she's going to get a few of those cakes.
Are you going to get a few of those cakes?
Suggest that you get half a kilo of cheese.
Let's get half a kilo of cheese.
Ask her if she thinks you've got enough eggs.
Do you think we've got enough eggs?
Ask her what else you have to get.
What else do we have to get?
Ask her what sort of a store this is anyway.
What sort of a store is this anyway?
End of Lesson 12. Lesson 13. Working late.
Roger has to work late at the bank tonight. He telephones Alice to say that he won't be home for dinner. Listen to their conversation.
Hello, Mrs. West speaking.
Alice, I'm afraid I won't be able to have dinner at home this evening.
Oh, that's too bad, Roger. You have to work late again?
Yes, I'm afraid so. We always have a lot of work at the end of the month.
Yes, I know. What time do you think you'll be back?
I'm not sure. Probably about 10.
Will you be able to have something to eat at the office?
Oh, yes. I can order some coffee and a few sandwiches. By the way, was there much mail today?
Very little. Just a few bills and a letter for you.
Who's the letter from?
I don't know. There's no return address. The postmark is Chicago. Maybe it's from your brother Fred. Shall I open it?
Yes, why don't you?
Just a moment. Yes, I was right. It's from Fred. It's very short. Shall I read it over the phone?
Okay.
Dear Roger, I'll be in New Jersey on business the week after next. I won't have much free time, but I'll be able to visit you on Saturday. Will you be home then? How are Alice and the children? Fred. It is a short letter, isn't it?
Yes, Fred doesn't like to write long letters.
Do you think he'll want to stay with us on Saturday night?
No, he'll probably go back to Chicago in the evening. Well, I'm afraid I'll have to get back to work now, Alice.
I'll see you about 10 then, okay?
Okay.
Now, answer these questions. Where is Roger going to have dinner tonight?
He's going to have dinner at the office.
Why isn't he going to have dinner at home?
Because he has to work late.
Why does he call up his wife?
He calls her up to tell her he won't be home.
What is he going to order for dinner?
He's going to order some coffee and a few sandwiches.
What time does he think he'll be back?
He thinks he'll probably be back about 10.
Why does he have to work overtime?
Because he always has a lot of work at the end of the month.
Did Alice say there was a lot of mail?
No, she said there was very little.
There were a few bills, weren't there?
Yes, there were.
Were there any letters?
Yes, there was one.
Did Fred's letter say he would be in New Jersey or in New York?
It said he would be in New Jersey.
Why is Fred coming?
He's coming on business.
When did he say he would be there?
He said he would be there the week after next.
Did the letter say he would visit the Wests on Saturday or on Sunday?
It said he would visit them on Saturday.
What does Roger think Fred will probably do on Saturday evening?
He thinks he'll probably go back to Chicago.
Now, ask Roger and Alice these questions. Ask Roger if he has to work late again.
Do you have to work late again, Roger?
Ask him what time he'll be back.
What time will you be back?
Ask him if he'll be able to get something to eat at the office.
Will you be able to get something to eat at the office?
Ask Alice if there was any mail today.
Was there any mail today, Alice?
Ask Alice who the letter is from.
Who is the letter from?
End of Lesson 13. Lesson 14. Seeking Financial Advice.
Mr. Philip Crow is the president of a small engineering company. Its name is Crow Engineering Incorporated. Mr. Crow wants to expand his business, and he is planning to build a new factory. The problem is that he hasn't got enough money at the moment. He tried to borrow $100,000 from his bank. The bank manager agreed to lend him $50,000, but he refused to lend him $100,000. So Mr. Crow has to borrow the rest of the money, that is, $50,000, from another bank. Last Friday, Mr. Crow telephoned his lawyer, Mr. Phibbs, because he hoped to get some advice about a bank loan. Mr. Phibbs promised to introduce him to Roger West, and they agreed to visit Mr. West's bank on the following Wednesday. But on Tuesday, Mr. Phibbs' secretary called up Mr. Crow. Listen to the conversation.
Good morning, Crow Engineering Incorporated.
Good morning. This is Argue and Phibbs Incorporated. I'd like to speak to Mr. Crow.
This is Philip Crow speaking.
Good morning, Mr. Crow. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Mr. Phibbs is very sorry, but he has to take a business trip, so he won't be able to go to the bank with you tomorrow.
He won't? What shall I do then?
We're sending a letter of introduction. You'll be receiving it this afternoon.
All right. Did Mr. Phibbs make an appointment with Mr. West?
No, sir. He says you can make the appointment.
I see. Is that all?
That's all, sir. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Now, answer these questions. What kind of a company does Mr. Crow have?
He has an engineering firm.
What does he plan to build?
He plans to build a new factory.
Why does he want to build?
He wants to expand his business.
How does he hope to get some money?
He hopes to get some by borrowing from his bank.
Did he try to borrow $100,000 or $150,000?
He tried to borrow $100,000.
What did his bank agree to do?
It agreed to lend him $50,000.
What does Mr. Crow have to do in order to borrow the rest of the money?
He has to go to another bank.
What did Mr. Phibbs promise to do?
He promised to introduce him to Roger West.
When were they planning to go to Mr. West's bank?
They were planning to go on the following Wednesday.
When did Mr. Phibbs' secretary call Mr. Crow?
She called him on Tuesday.
What was the bad news?
The bad news was that Mr. Phibbs wouldn't be able to go to the bank with Mr. Crow.
What is Argue and Phibbs Incorporated going to send Mr. Crow?
They are going to send him a letter of introduction to Mr. West.
When will Mr. Crow be receiving that?
He'll be receiving it on Tuesday afternoon.
Who is going to make Mr. Crow's appointment with Mr. West?
Mr. Crow is going to make it himself.
Now, ask Mr. Crow these questions. Ask Mr. Crow what kind of work he does.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Crow?
Ask Mr. Crow how he wants to expand his business.
How do you want to expand your business?
Ask Mr. Crow if he's got enough money to build a new factory.
Have you got enough money to build a new factory?
Ask him how much money he tried to borrow from his bank.
How much money did you try to borrow from your bank?
Ask him how much his bank manager agreed to lend him.
How much did your bank manager agree to lend you?
Ask him what Mr. Phibbs promised to do.
What did Mr. Phibbs promise to do?
End of Lesson 14. Lesson 15. Mr. Crow at the bank.
You remember that Mr. Phibbs promised to introduce Mr. Crow to Roger West on Wednesday because Mr. Crow needs a bank loan of $50,000. But Mr. Phibbs had to take a business trip, so he wasn't able to go to the bank. Today is Wednesday, and Mr. Crow is at the bank. He has a letter of introduction for Mr. West, But he forgot to make an appointment. He is talking to Mr. West's private secretary. Listen to their conversation.
Excuse me, is the manager in? I'd like to speak to him.
I'm afraid Mr. West is tied up at the moment, sir. Have you got an appointment?
No, I intended to call up yesterday, but I was very busy, so I forgot.
I'm sorry, sir, but Mr. West refuses to see anyone without an appointment. Is it an urgent matter?
Yes, very urgent. I must see him today. I've got to get a bank loan as soon as possible.
I'm afraid that won't be easy, sir. You aren't a regular customer of this bank, are you?
No, but I hope to become one. My lawyer is a good friend of Mr. West's. He promised to introduce me, but he can't come today. I've got his letter of introduction.
May I see the letter, sir?
Of course. Here you are. It's from Mr. Phibbs.
Thank you. Yes, we know Mr. Phibbs very well here. You're Mr. Crow.
Yes, Philip Crow, president of Crow Engineering.
And you want to build a new factory?
Yes, my own bank agreed to lend me $50,000, but I need $100,000, so I've got to borrow $50,000 more.
I see. Well, Mr. West will probably be free later this morning. I'll try to make an appointment for 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
I can't promise, of course. Mr. West is a very busy man.
I understand. But you will try, won't you?
I'll do my best.
Thank you. I'll be back at 12 o'clock.
Very good, sir.
Now, answer these questions. Does Mr. Crow have an appointment with Mr. West?
No, he doesn't.
Why did he forget to call up?
Because he was very busy.
What does Mr. West refuse to do?
He refuses to see anyone without an appointment.
Why must Mr. Crow see Mr. West today?
Because it's an urgent matter.
What does he hope to become?
He hopes to become a regular customer.
Who is a good friend of Mr. West's?
Mr. Crow's lawyer is.
Does the secretary say they know Mr. Phibbs?
Yes, she does.
What does the secretary ask to see?
She asks to see the letter of introduction.
When will Mr. West probably be free?
He'll probably be free later in the morning.
What will the secretary try to do for Mr. Crow?
She'll try to make an appointment for 12 o'clock.
Will Mr. Crow come back at 12 o'clock, or will the secretary call him up?
He'll be back at 12 o'clock.
Why will he come back at 12 o'clock?
He'll come back to see Mr. West.
Now, imagine that you are the secretary and ask Mr. Crow these questions. Ask him if he has an appointment.
Do you have an appointment?
Ask him if it's an urgent matter.
Is it an urgent matter?
Ask him if he's a regular customer.
Are you a regular customer?
Ask him if you can see the letter of introduction.
May I see the letter of introduction?
Ask him if he's Mr. Crow.
Are you Mr. Crow?
Ask him if he wants to build a new factory.
Do you want to build a new factory?
End of Lesson 15. End of Side A.
He hopes to become a regular customer.
Who is a good friend of Mr. West's?
Mr. Crow's lawyer is.
Does the secretary say they know Mr. Phibbs?